The isolation is the first thing that strikes you. Looking at the Mediterranean coastline, you might expect boutique hotels, spontaneous boat tours, and relaxed summer itineraries. But this is Mount Athos. It is a self-governing monastic state operating under a 1,000-year-old legal code and a level of extreme austerity that completely rejects the tourism industry. To step inside this perfectly preserved piece of the Byzantine Empire, you have to submit entirely to its bureaucracy and a punishing physical routine. A trip here requires a strict trade-off. You surrender modern conveniences and your personal autonomy in exchange for unfiltered access to a living Byzantine society. The border to this peninsula is strictly regulated. Access is exclusively for men, and entry is capped by rigid daily quotas. This flowchart maps out the exact entry filter. Women and spontaneous travelers are completely barred from entry. For the men who remain, the path splits into strict daily limits based on whether you are Orthodox or non-Orthodox. These rules are enforced by the Holy Superintendents, a 4-member executive authority representing the 20 sovereign monasteries of the peninsula. Arriving without the right paperwork or ignoring their laws carries immediate consequences. Athonite law enforcement will expel you from the territory, or you will simply find yourself stranded outside the monastery gates overnight. Because commercial tourism doesn't exist here, understanding and navigating their ancient administrative laws is the only way you are getting in. There is no central booking website. Your first step is to directly contact individual monasteries 1 to 2 months in advance and ask them for a bed. Securing that bed does not mean you can enter. You then have to apply for the official entry visa, called the diamoniterion, through the pilgrim's office. This diagram tracks the critical path. Monastery approval unlocks your diamoniterion application, allowing you to board the boat. Your stay is capped at 4 days. Notice the split paths based on background. Non-Orthodox visitors face tighter quotas and higher fees. Before you leave the modern world, you must arrive early at the departure port, usually Orinoupoli or Irissos, to physically pick up your approved paperwork. This port town is filled with bright awnings and tourist shops. It's a sharp contrast to the stark reality you are about to enter. This multi-stage vetting process completely eliminates the possibility of a spontaneous weekend trip. You have to really want to go to successfully execute this plan. Once you step off the boat onto Athonite soil, you undergo a literal shift in how time is measured. This timeline compares the Gregorian calendar with the Athonite Julian calendar. Mount Athos operates with a 13-day lag, putting their holidays entirely out of sync. Their daily clock uses Byzantine time, where the midnight mark shifts to lock exactly onto sunset. This has a critical real-world consequence. Monastery gates lock definitively at sunset. If your logistics are delayed and you arrive after dark, you'll be locked out. This temporal shift forces you to abandon your modern schedule completely and submit to the rhythm of an ancient monastic life. The Athonite day begins brutally early. You will receive a wake-up call at 4 a.m. to immediately attend the morning prayer, or orthros. The subsequent church services require you to stand for hours inside dark, unheated, ancient spaces. In this 4 a.m. liturgy, a monk lights an ornate chandelier in the dark. The atmosphere is medieval, pre-industrial, and demands absolute reverence. Meals in the refectory are highly regimented. They are strictly vegetarian, eaten rapidly, and conducted in absolute silence while a monk reads from spiritual texts. You eat these silent meals at long wooden tables, surrounded by vibrant, ancient frescoes. It is a rigid routine in a culturally rich environment. Throughout the day, you must follow strict dress and behavioral mandates. You must wear modest clothing, long trousers are mandatory, and photography inside the buildings is completely banned. A true visit here means actively enduring an exhausting ascetic lifestyle. You must maintain total respect for the monk's primary occupation, which is continuous prayer. Moving between these monasteries is a massive logistical challenge. You rely on sparse buses, sporadic ferry boats, or brutal steep hikes. Look at this massive, multi-story stone monastery built directly into the steep mountainside. This rugged verticality is exactly why packing light and preparing for physical exertion is mandatory. A critical travel hack for this journey is to utilize the central port of Daphne. Purchase your supplies and souvenirs there before or after your main trek, so you aren't hauling extra weight up the mountain paths. Even while in transit or waiting at the port, remember that the Holy Superintendence enforces strict rules on public behavior, noise, and decency. By meticulously managing your ground logistics and packing strategy, you preserve your physical energy for the actual spiritual experience. To evaluate whether this experience makes sense for you, we have to weigh the extreme inputs of bureaucracy and physical exhaustion against the outputs of historical and spiritual immersion. This matrix plots archetypes: devout pilgrim, historical explorer, and casual tourist, against bureaucracy, endurance, and spiritual reward. The pilgrim and explorer's goals justify the austerities, maxing out their reward metrics. The casual tourist entirely fails. Without amenities, their scores drop to 0. Mount Athos requires the total surrender of modern convenience, timelines, and autonomy. But in return, it pays out in an unparalleled living connection to a 1,000-year-old world that exists nowhere else on Earth.